Hello everyone and welcome back to ESRL Division 1. We're here in China for round number 2 of Season 6 and I am very much looking forward to it. I hope you are too. It's going to be a great race. We've got the usual suspects on the grid. We have a full grid for this full qualifying session, so we will have Q1, Q2 and Q3 just like real F1. And yeah, some big hitters on the grid, and all the usual championship contending suspects are here as well, which is great to see. Like Lancer, Martin, Clemo, Speed, Short Marcus, Johnny Stokes, even Lifebout's here as well. So he's going to make it an interesting one at the front. But good to see so many on the grid, a full grid. Haven't seen one of those for quite a while, whether commentating or racing. So it's very good to see. And I could not tell you who's going to be on pole today. We're here in China. It's a great track, this. Very much lends itself to some good races. I've seen plenty good ones around here in the past. Looks like Jack Alacco is going to be the first to set a lap today in his Alpha Tauri. He's going to be on the medium, so hoping to get through to Q2 with the medium tyres, so he can save a set of softs for later. And he's coming round the final corner to take us on a lap. Hello Speed in the chat. I am very well, thank you. I hope you are too. And we're going to follow Jack Alacco as he takes us on a lap of China, round turn 1, and then all the way through, never-ending corner through turn 2, and then 3, a quick, sharp left-hander, and then open the steering all the way out to the next straight on the grid. Down the gears goes Jacko for the next corner. Pretty nicely done from the Scottish driver as he approaches the rest of Sector 2 now. Is he flat through this left-hander? Yes, he is. The right-hander definitely not flat. Goes down to 4th gear. Has a little bit of oversteer on the exit, but manages to keep it under control. Through the double left-hander. Very nicely done from Jack Alacco there. It's looking like a decent banker for him. But now comes the hardest corner on the circuit. It's this long right-hander. You've got to just send it at some point, decide when to put on the power, and make sure you don't go into the wall or on the curb on the exit if you understeer instead. DRS open all the way down this long straight. We're going to see plenty of overtakes here today as he goes down towards the hairpin, down the gears, brakes just before the 100 board. It's a little bit late, but it's not too bad. You don't lose too much time from braking too late at that hairpin. And through the final corner, very nice banker lap from Jack Alacco on the medium tyres. It's a 33.0. We'll see how that compares to everyone else's laps. Cheb beats that with a 32.8 on the softs. His Alpine, the two Alpines on track further back. I think they'll be the next to set laps. As you've got a few other drivers starting their laps. Let's read the chat. China with a full grid indeed, Louis, and it's full qualifying as well. So we're going Q1, 5 drivers will get eliminated, Q2 another 5, and then Q3 will decide pole position. Finley says Lancer for pole. So there's a prediction from the assuming that is X_Finley 2006 from the APPF1 Tier 1 runner-up last season. We've got Wiggy now onto pole position out of nowhere, 32.7 for the Alpine driver, and his teammate goes P3, so Jack Alacco's lap looking a little bit weak in comparison. He did do it on the mediums, but I think he might have to bite the bullet and go for some softs before the end of this session. We will see. Palang a long way behind in P5 right now, 2.2 seconds down on Wiggy's lap. We've got QB there. Lifebout will be winning by 10 seconds, says Speed. Honestly, I would not doubt it, Speed. I would not be surprised at all. But Reshka coming through now in Sector 2 for the Aston Martin driver. My Invictus Racing League teammate. He looks like he's doing a bit of a... I think he's doing 2 outlaps, actually. Reshka, so we'll catch up with him later on. What about Scotty in the Ferrari? Is he going to take pole? No, it's a 33.6, a long way back. Surely a lot to improve on for Scotty. So Zuba's going to be the next to cross the line in the AlphaTauri. Good to see him on track always. Through the final corner comes Zuba. A little bit tentative through there, I think, and it's a 33.8, which puts him P6 just behind Scotty. Jack says it's a dry to wet race, which is going to inject some more tension and drama into this one. Rashka goes P8, but obviously wasn't really on a competitive lap. Don't reckon he's practiced at all, says Finley. Well, he doesn't need practice, though, does he? Really? At this point, he doesn't really need practice to smoke the ESRL grid, I don't think. We'll find out, but yeah, we'll see. QB goes a long way behind. It's Scott going to be next across the line. Through the final corner, he goes. And, oh, a bit of too much curb on the exit of the hairpin. Down towards the final corner for Scott now. And we'll be hoping to do a little bit better than a 33.9 on his next run. But he knows where the mistake was made, so hopefully he can improve. And suddenly, Jacko's lap isn't looking too bad anymore, with Zuba, Scott and Scotty a long way down on it, and obviously Palang and QB and Reshka. Jack says mine goes 10% for the first 15 minutes, and then by 30 it's a 71% chance of rain. So, but Speed saying it's wet to dry, so we'll find out. We'll find out as soon as the grid gets out for the race, whether it's wet to dry or dry to wet. What is happening? Don't know what was happening there. I was pressing L2 and it was going down. As Reshka now, that's much better. 2 outlaps seem to be the way for the British driver as he takes pole position for now with a 32.3, the new benchmark for everyone else. And here is the defending champion TF Martin, who seemed like he had won at the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix last week to take the championship lead after round 1. But in the stewards, they disagreed and gave him a 5-second penalty for a collision with Lancer that we didn't catch because we were following the McLarens at the time on the commentary stream. But collision with Lancer, the stewards deemed him to be at fault, as Greg has been disqualified for blocking the pit lane, must have spun on the exit, and that is very unfortunate. So that is one spot, one elimination spot that people do not have to beat. So only the bottom 4 will go out now, thanks to Greg's disqualification, which he will not be too pleased about. But that's the way it goes sometimes. Here comes Martin now. But yeah, the stewards' 5-second penalty, which dropped him, I believe, to 3rd place and allowed Clemo to win the race. So Clemo is your championship leader coming into today. And the defending champ Martin is going to have to put on a bit of a, well, a less steward... a performance less befalling of the stewards as he goes into P2. It's actually a 10th and a half behind Reshka. I think perhaps Reshka has found an answer with 2 outlaps there, because that is a very, very strong opening lap from him. We've got Lewis AP coming through Sector 2 right now as well in the Williams. I know he can be quick, raced with him a few times over in APPF1. Which is my league, if you want an invite. I can give you the Discord link. I do have permission to plug my own league. Scott has given me permission to do that, so don't worry. But anyway, Johnny goes to P1 for now, half a second ahead of Reshka, and that's more like it from the Ferrari driver, 31.8, and that's going to take some beating. As Lewis looks to do exactly that. He's coming through the final sector now, down through the long, long straight. DRS open down towards the hairpin. But he's got no ERS left, which is really going to hurt him. I don't know how he's run out of ERS already. That's quite astonishing. Must have forgotten to turn it off on his outlap or something like that. So I don't think this is going to challenge for pole, but we'll see how close it is. It's a 32.2. It's only 4/10 down, and considering he was out of ERS for that whole, pretty much the whole third sector, that is not a bad showing at all. Should see him safely through to Q2 anyways. We've got Lost Super Spy, a newbie. Haven't seen the Red Bull driver before, but invalidated their first effort, unfortunately for them. Speed on the medium tyres, meanwhile, missed out on the title last season by 1 point to TF Martin. As who was that improved? I think it was Jack Alacco, who did a lap on the soft tyres and has put him up to P4. So Martin a long way down, and I think some room to improve for him for sure, as Lifebout now goes up to P2 in the Alfa Romeo. But yeah, I think it should see him safely through to Q2 anyways, and that's all you need to do at this point. But Speed on the medium tyres, looking to get some good use out of them and save the softs for later in qualifying. It's going to be a 32.0, which will definitely see him through to Q2, and that's a great effort from him. And Aces versus Kings up to P4 in the meantime as well in the Haas. So again, should see them safely through. As Short Marcus starts his first effort of the session, 6 minutes to go in Q1. As the McLaren driver comes through Sector 1 now. Turns 1, 2 and 3 seem fairly planted. Oh, as he gets a bit of a snap of the rear on the exit of Turn 3 there, but manages to hold on to it. 24.0 through Sector 1. And a big lockup into the next corner as well. A bit of a scrappy lap so far from Marcus, but all he needs to do is get a reasonable effort out there, and he should see him into Q2. Same with DRL Lancer and Clemo, who are yet to exit the pits. They're leaving this quite late. I see one of them leaving on the minimap right now. That is... we're about to find out. It is Lancer who's just left the pit lane, but Clemo's still in, our championship leaders. Johnny Stokes retires from the session. I'm not sure what's happened there. I can't see him on the map. Oh no, he's in the pits. Okay, I thought he'd crashed because there were yellow flags, but no, he's just retired in the pit lane. And Marcus getting a nice slipstream off this Ferrari in front, but getting a bit too close here. That is Scotty here just in front of him. And Marcus will be getting a bit of dirty air from that Ferrari, which is not going to help him through the final corner, but it seems like he's done fairly well, and it's absolutely fine. A scrappy first sector, but it's still pole position for Marcus, and he is definitely through to Q2 with that one. Scott next up. He is one of the ones in danger here of going out before Q2. He's 2.3 down on the pole time currently, and that's not going to help. That is going to help even less. That is a lack of a tyre, and Scott crashes out of Q1. So he's going to have to hope that Clemo and Lancer, I think he's going to have to hope they have a stroke for him to not go into Q2. For him to not be knocked out in Q1 here. I think Scott is going to find himself near to the back of the grid from today's qualifying. As here comes Lancer. Finley predicted this man for pole position today. So we'll see how well he does on his first effort. It's going to be the medium tyres. He's doing the same strategy as Speed. I think it's a very reasonable strategy, this. If it were me, I would be doing this. I'd be out on the medium tyres. And Lancer coming through turns 1 and 2. As long as he keeps it together, should see him safely through to Q2, I would have thought. Speed and Lifebout both think they've done enough, and I would agree. More than enough, I think they've done. Scott is gutted in the chat there with the sobbing emojis, and Louis giving him a salute as well, and Tia responding to it in the way I would expect Tia to respond to a crash from Scott. But Lancer coming through the double left-hander it's a little bit of an oversteer moment, I think, there through the first one. wet towards the end of the race. So yeah, what Jacko said, nobody knows what setup to put on. Yeah, it's going to be a weird one, this. Everyone will have chosen their setups already, apart from Clemo, who still hasn't exited the pit lane. There's only 2.5 minutes. He's in danger of going out in Q1 here. He's got to get out on track soon as the championship leader. I have no idea what he's doing. Lifebout's left the session. Hopefully he'll be back soon as Lancer comes through to the hairpin. Very well put together lap from Lancer. Clemo finally out on track, but he hasn't got much time here. He's only going to get 1 lap to get himself into Q2. Lancer sees himself safely up to P5. He'll be fine, but Clemo, 2 minutes left in the session. He's going to get 1 attempt at this. If he messes this up, he's going to be straight out. I think, to be honest, the quality of driver he is, all he's really got to do is keep it on track. But yeah, that's he's left it very late, needlessly here, and he's going to have to just keep it clean on his first and final run. Newbie lost Super Spy up to P12 in the meantime, finally gets a valid lap in, and he, well, I wouldn't say safely through to Q2, but he's almost certainly through to Q2 with how far behind Zuber, Scott, Palang and QB are in terms of lap time. But we'll see, maybe one of them can find something out of the top drawer, like the Canadian driver Palang. He's coming through turn 2 right now. QB spins in the meantime in the Aston Martin. Well, he's trying his best to get himself a little bit closer to staying in Q1, staying in this qualifying session, as it comes back on the track. I wouldn't call that a safe rejoin, but I don't think Clemo would call it a safe rejoin either. He's probably had his heart in his mouth for a moment there. Super Spice first race without line. Wow. Well, he's doing a fantastic job then, up there in P12. Can we stop the count now, says Marcus. Count this as Q3. I'm sure he'd like that. But, I mean, it's got to be encouraging at least to be so far up in Q1 and, well, on the top step. So some good pace, clearly, for Marcus today. As Palang now, DRS open all the way down to the hairpin. What happened to Scott? He crashed in Sector 2. Put a little bit too much on the throttle through the right-hander in Sector 2 and straight into the wall as Lifebout rejoins the session. Here comes Palang. What can he do? Can he get himself any closer to Q2? Through the final corner comes the Alfa Romeo driver. What's it going to be? It's 15th. It's just about beaten Zuber. So if Clemo messes this up, Palang will be through to Q2. But Clemo's just got to keep it clean here. He's coming through Sector 2, but a bit on the curb through the double left-hander. That is not ideal at all. As he comes through a 51.8 in Sector 2. Late on the brakes for Clemo there, but gets it stopped around the long right-hander as all the pressure is on his shoulders. He's the championship leader. He's the race winner from last week. DRS open all the way down towards the hairpin. 2 corners to go for Clemo. I don't know if he's anywhere near going out with this lap. But it's a good effort from Palang to get himself, give himself the best chance. But Clemo through the hairpin and out towards the final corner now. It's looking decent. A bit too much curb on both the entry and exit, but it should be enough. It's 13th. It's only just enough. Well, I mean, it's a second clear of Palang, but in terms of positions, it's only just enough, and it's not going to give him any confidence going into the next part of qualifying. But that is your lot for Q1. It's going to be Palang, Zuber, Scott, QB, and the unfortunate Alpine of JAG Greg, who got disqualified for blocking the pit lane somehow, who will be leaving this qualifying session in Q1. So there you have it. It's Short Marcus on pole in Q1, or in P1 I should say, not pole yet, with Johnny Stokes and Lifebout alongside. Speed Alcoholic and Lancer both on the mediums, so they'll have fresh softs for later. But the drivers exiting in Q1 are Palang in 16th and Zuba in P17. Scott will be P18 after his unfortunate crash, and with Scotty's lap, perhaps Scott would have had a chance at getting into Q2 as well if he hadn't crashed. QB down in 19th and Greg disqualified, and he'll start from the back. Wonder who's running a wet setup, if anyone. Yeah, wonder if anyone's tuned their setup just a bit. If it were me, I would just have put on my dry setup, but just tuned it a bit to allow for the rain later on. Scott says he's on a wet setup, so if there's a late safety car, keep an eye on Scott. But Marcus says he's never had a wet setup in his life. I mean, like, I'll change my setup, I'll tweak it, but I don't really go out of my way to make wet setups, or take wet setups even. I'm just not that serious about it. Especially these days, I can't practice anywhere near as much as I used to be able to. So that's why I have regrettably made the decision, as Scott's going to probably ban me from commentating for this, but I've taken the decision last season, last APP F1 season, I thought, right, I'm turning the line off for good. But then my life circumstances changed quite a bit. I no longer have the time to practice as much as I used to, so it's not as rewarding anymore. And it's not going to be as rewarding as I hoped it would be, as it would have been if I'd been able to practice as much as I could. So I've regrettably, I think, made the decision to turn line back on where possible. Still happy to do elite championships, but yeah, I'm not going full-time no line anymore. But had my life circumstances stayed the same, I would have kept going with it for sure. But yeah. But it's Aces first out on track this time in the Haas, looking to fly the flag of the American team after his teammate crashed out in Q1. And he's going to be the first to set a benchmark here in Q2 with 13 minutes to go. As long as you turn up when you race for the team, I'm happy, of course, absolutely. Aces around the final corner, DRS open all the way down towards turn 1, and here he goes. Very late braking for turn 1, turns in early and then brakes late, but a bit of oversteer, too much throttle on the exit for Aces, and through turn 3 a little bit more planted, but I think took a lot less out of the car through there, out of fear after the loss of the rear in turn 2. And again, a bit too much curb on the entry there. So a bit of a scrappy start to the lap from Aces, but we saw a scrappy start to Marcus's lap in Q1, and then he went straight up to P1. Of course, Aces will go up to P1 after this lap no matter what, as long as he doesn't invalidate it. But it will only be brief if it remains as scrappy as it was in Sector 1. Through he goes to the next part of the circuit. The long, never-ending right-hander that's always very scary to put down the throttle through there, but he's got it done. And down this very long straight, DRS open for Aces. All the way down towards the hairpin. Where's he going to brake? It's going to be just as he hits the curb on the left-hand side, and it's about where you should brake. If you're very good at getting your braking right, then that is where you should brake. But Aces, it goes a little bit deep, and a little bit wide on the final corner as well, but it's a 32.8. It's not a bad benchmark at all from the Haas driver. What can Scotty do? He was only just through to Q2 after Q1, but he smashes Aces' time out of the water by 0.6 of a second, and that's much better. I think he would have had his heart in his mouth a little bit towards the end of Q1, because he could have gone out undeservedly. Well, not undeservedly, but he could have gone out of a session which he shouldn't really have gone out of, given his pace so far in Q2. Wiggy and Reshka, I think, both doing 2 outlaps as Jack Alacco beats the Ferrari driver, a 32.2 from the Scotsman as well. And he now goes up to P1 as the other Ferrari of Johnny Stokes comes around the final corner. He was very high up in Q1, but this time he falls short of Jack Alacco, and the Scottish driver beating out both Ferraris so far in Q2. Great lap from the AlphaTauri driver, and he's going to be hoping that sees him safely through to Q3 already, but still plenty of fast drivers left to run. Speed Alcoholic, Clemo, Lifepout, Marcus, Lewis, Lancer and Martin. Those are not 6 names you want to be seeing who haven't done their laps yet. Or in fact 7 names really. But here they go. I think it's going to be, those are going to be the drivers to beat. Johnny Stokes should be up there as well, given his pace in Q1, but who knows anymore. So I think 3 spots to fight for realistically, I would say, as Reshka comes down to the final corner now. In the Aston Martin, the British driver, DRS Open, it's a decent effort. It's a 32.5, 0.3 down from Jack Alacco. And Reshka will be hoping for a bit better than that, because I don't think that's going to be enough as it is to see him through to Q3. What about Wiggy? He's headed into the pit lane, so was not happy with that run, and he's going to have to come out and go again. Lewis AP as well. Coming through turn 1 now on his first effort in Q2. 8.5 minutes to go in the session, so plenty of time still to go. Oh, Clemo this time not leaving it so late, getting out straight away almost to set a lap. Not leaving anything to chance in Q2 as Lewis looks pretty decent through sector 1. He's got short Marcus just behind. Speed's just started his lap as well, as has Martin. But through comes Lewis now. In sector 2, the double left-hander. How's he going to fare through these corners? Oh, that is beautiful through there from Lewis as he heads down towards the final sector. Very nicely done there as well from Lewis. It's a shame his helmet doesn't really match the beauty of his driving at the moment. But through the long right-hander and down the very, very long straight. I think it's top 3 longest straights on the calendar after Vegas and Monza, I think. Perhaps, I might be wrong, but he was very deep in the hairpin, so that's not going to help his course, and he's out of VRS again. That's the second time now that that's happened to him, so I wonder why he's running out of VRS and others don't seem to be, but he does go P1 by a long way, 0.4 ahead. As short Marcus can only manage P5, so a scruffy lap from the British driver. Meanwhile, the reigning champion Martin goes P2, and that should see him safely through. Cheb is in the wall in the meantime in the other Williams, and Lost Super Spy just starting his next effort. Speed Alcoholic down towards the line. What's it going to be for him? It's going to be P1, and it's again 0.4 clear of Lewis, and that is more like the pace that we were expecting to be on pole. A 31.3 for the South African, as the championship leader Clemo also on the lap, but Lifebout, I think you've got to keep an eye on him. The Dutchman through the final corner he goes. What's it going to be for Lifebout? It's going to be very, very deep. That's what it's going to be, but it's still going to be P1 even after that, and that really puts the cat amongst the pigeons and shows you just how crazily good this guy has gotten in the last couple of years. Clemo, DRS Open down towards the line. It's a 32.5 for him, and that is definitely not safe. Clemo could be in some danger here. The championship leader, not as much of a fan of this track as he is of Yas Marina from last week, clearly. But Cheb, I don't think, is on a competitive lap time. What about Lost Super Spy? He's getting some great slipstream from his teammate. That's great teamwork from the Red Bulls. And Martin helping out his teammate. I wonder if they're in a party together as Super Spy comes to the last corner. A bit of oversteer on the exit of the hairpin as DRS Open to the line. It's a 32.8, and at the moment that's only P11, so not looking like he's going to get through to Q3 as it stands. So he's going to have to try again later on. Lancer still in the pits in the meantime. Is he going to do what Clemo did last in Q1, I wonder? Speed Alcoholics left the session. Hopefully he can get back in, but maybe he left by accident. I think he maybe meant to retire. I'm not sure. But Cheb coming into the pits, so he's going to have to try again as Lifebout heads into the pits. And we have a bit of a lull in proceedings. 5 minutes to go in Q2. We shall see how the rest of the session lines up. So I take a drink of my water, which I think I'm going to have to fill up before the race. Because this could be a very, very good one with Speed, Martin, Clemo, Lancer, Lifebout all on the track together. Lewis up there as well. Going to be an interesting one, but again, Martin is not on pace in Q2. I wonder if he was taking it easy in Q1 and 2, or has been taking it easy. As Lifebout retires, he has definitely done enough to get himself into Q3. As Aces is the next to set a lap time, 3.5 minutes to go. So if he messes up this lap, he will have a chance to go again. But after that, I think that's all it's going to be. Speed says his power is gone. Oh no! Is that load shedding? Oh, what a disaster. Aces versus Kings, though, through Sector 1. Is it going to be an improvement on his previous time? He needs a big improvement, and it is. 4/10 up is Aces after the first few corners. And we saw him get that oversteer through Turn 2 on his last attempt. So it's not surprising he's made a big improvement. Now he's got to consolidate it in the rest of the circuit. Through Sector 2 he goes. And yeah, it is load shedding. Oh, I'm so sorry, Speed. I think that's going to be your race over then, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, that's going to be an AI driving around the whole track, by the looks of it, for the whole race, which not ideal, but obviously nothing you can do about it. Aces, though, comes to Sector 3 now. DRS Open down the straight. He needs a big improvement here if he wants any chance of getting into Q3. Lancer's on a lap as well. Speed says it comes back at 10 PM. Oh, okay. So, it's going to be tight, but you should make it, hopefully. But Aces through the final corner. He goes a bit too much of the curb on the inside, but not too bad for Aces. And it is a 31.8, a huge improvement from Aces versus Kings, and that should see him into Q3. Great lap from the Haas driver, really flying the flag after Scott's crash earlier on. Lancer in the meantime through the final corner, DRS Open to the line, and it's a 31.3, which should definitely see him into Q3. Left it late, but he knew what he was doing. Louis says praying for a speed return and W. Definitely praying for a speed return, that's for sure. But Cheb through Sector 2 now, coming to the end of that sector. And into the last few corners of the circuit. He's got to put in a decent time here to see himself with any chance of getting into Q3. Reshka currently in P11. Short Marcus, who was P1 in Q1, sorry, is on the cusp here of getting knocked out in Q2, which would be a huge shock. Cheb coming to the hairpin now in the Williams. See if he can do anything to get himself closer to Q3 through the final corner. Jack Alacco looking pretty fast as well, I'd say. So Cheb, P13 for him. So about a tenth and a half away from what is currently P10. But Short Marcus 5.5 tenths up, so it's looking good for the British driver as he comes down towards the last few corners. If you guess the pole time, can you have a 20-point head start at the start of APP F1? I'm afraid not, Finley. I'm afraid not. But you will get a lot of fame and plaudits if you do guess the pole time. Marcus up to P4 in the McLaren, so that's definitely him safely into Q3. What about Wiggy in the Alpine? Hasn't set a competitive lap time in this session so far. Reshka coming to the last corner as well in the Aston Martin, and he's 3.5 tenths up, which would see him safely into Q3. It's going to be close at the end here, but a bit of a moment on the final corner cost him maybe a bit of time, but still gained time in the final sector. 5 tenths better than his previous effort. P7 for him for now, but the two Ferraris are on laps. And Johnny Stokes improving, but Scotty isn't. I think Scotty's out of Q2. He has been knocked out here. Wiggy couldn't quite do enough. Very, very close to that P10 cutoff. But Johnny Stokes here looking to get himself further up. And look who's in trouble. TF Martin's in trouble, the defending champion. He's only P9. If Johnny improves, he's 5.5 tenths up. Who else is on the lap? Clemo is 5 tenths up, but he's locked up in the hairpin. That's going to cost him a few tenths, but Martin in real danger of getting knocked out here. Johnny Stokes is coming down through Sector 3 as well, but what can Clemo do? Is that going to cost him that lock-up? No, it's P7 for him. Martin in big, big trouble. Johnny Stokes coming to the hairpin now. Lost Super Spies on a lap as well, but he's invalidated, so it's all about this Ferrari driver. Can he knock out the defending champion in Q2? Down towards the final corner he comes. Johnny Stokes to cause a shock. He's gone very deep at the last corner, but is it still enough? Yes, it is. And Martin is P11 in this qualifying session. That is a huge shock. And he will not be moving into Q3. That was not on my bingo card. But Chakalako, P10. Great effort from him and from Reshka and Aces as well. But that is a big surprise. Martin out in Q2. So it is Lifebout in P1 in Q2 this time, with Speed Alcoholic, Lancer and Marcus making up the top 4, and going down to the drivers knocked out in Q2. Lost Super Spy in his first race without line. Cheb in P14. Wiggy just a fraction of a couple of tenths away from getting himself into Q3. Scotty here not too far off as well. But Martin, the biggest shock of this quali session, out in Q2. So here we are for the final part of qualifying Q3. As we find out who is going to take pole position for the Chinese Grand Prix in ESRL season number 6. I think Lifebout probably the favourite for pole, but if Speed can get himself back in the session, then he's not too bad a shout for pole either, I would say. Lancer will likely be up there too, but I think probably between those three, I would say, for pole position, but we'll see. Maybe someone can pull out a fantastic lap out of nowhere to snatch pole position. But Ace versus Kings coming out of the pit lane now in the Haas, as he's going to be the first to set a lap for the second quali session running. Unfortunately, he has a default helmet, so gets 0 out of 10 for the helmet review. Lifebout coming out of the pits. Jackalacko also got a default helmet. I'm sure he's got a proper helmet somewhere. Maybe he just selected the wrong character, but for today he gets 0 out of 10. Lifebout, meanwhile, let's have a look at his helmet from a better angle. It's just pure black. It's just black. Okay. I mean, it's not the default helmet, but it's also not creative in any way. So it's going to have to be a 2, I think. Just slightly better than using a default design without changing the colours of it. But I think the worst grade I can give to a custom helmet, 2 out of 10. Johnny Stokes, what has he got? Oh, that looks very nice. Black background, and we've got the grey and what looks like brown or beige patterns. Quite tastefully done, that is, from Johnny Stokes, I think. I will give that a 7. That is 7 out of 10. Clemo has the Max Verstappen helmet, so that's going to be a 1 out of 10. Speed is devastated that he can't be there for Q3. Hopefully he can get back in soon, but yeah, nightmare for the South African. Short Marcus, what's he got? Bit of neon green by the looks of it on the side of the helmet. See if we can see it as he comes around this corner. Neon green, sort of a dull gold, and black for the background. It's a 5.5, that one. Lewis, yeah, those colours, Lewis. I think, yeah. I mean, I hope you're colourblind, is all I'll say. 4. But anyway, we've got some laps to see. Aces versus Kings coming through. Jackalacko just behind him, and then Lifebout about a sector behind both of them. Ace versus Kings on the big long straight towards the hairpin now. Speed has just figured out that Mar 10 is out. Yeah, got knocked out fair and square, Speed. P11 he was. Just knocked out fair and square right at the end of the session. So it was a real shock. But yeah, he is out of this qualifying session. So he will not take part in Q3. The defending champ going to have to come from close to the back of the grid as Aces does a 32-1 on his first effort, which is not bad at all. As Lifebout comes through sector 3 now, very close to the inside, really using the steering of the car to its utmost without spinning it. As here he comes to the hairpin, power is back for Speed, so hopefully he can get back in the session as soon as possible and set a lap before the end. Bit of a moment for Lifebout on the exit of the hairpin, but I think this will still comfortably see him on to provisional pole position. DRS Open, it's a 30.6 from Lifebout, which is just ridiculous. Finley said a 30.798, so he's already wrong. Lifebout's beaten him by a 10th and a half, or beaten his prediction by a 1/10.5. Here comes Johnny Stokes around the final corner. He's not going to be anywhere near Lifebout, but it is P2 for him so far. Has beaten Aces as Clemo, who looked in a bit of danger in Q1 for quite a while, and hasn't looked strong either on pace in Q2 either. Down towards the line, it's a 32.4 and he's behind Aces, and yeah, Clemo looking fairly weak on this circuit for now. Speed Alcoholic looks like he's back in the session, thankfully. Lewis up to P3 in the meantime. Marcus, a bit of a wide exit from the last corner, but it's P2 still for the McLaren driver. As Reshka on his first out lap, but if his previous runs are anything to go by, he'll go for a second out lap as well before his lap here in Q3. He'll be happy to be here in Q3, I think, and he's got quite a nice looking helmet as well. It's very creative. I'll give him an 8.5 for that one. It's pretty nice helmet. The colours aren't too bad. I think it's just not clashing, but just the colours are a bit. They're not easy on the eye, is all I'll say. So that's why it's not higher than 8.5, but still creative and very nice helmet from Reshka as he starts his first run. He is only doing one outlap this time, so through Sector 1 you can see he's draining ERS, so here he goes. On his first run, Lifebout pole by a long way, and it could well stay that way, as Lancer's on an outlap though, so I think he's the most likely to get closer to that time from Lifebout for now. As long as Speed can't get back in, hopefully he can at some point. He says he's still trying to join in the chat. Reshka, Sector 2 of 51.3. Little bit of curb on the inside there of the left-hander, but not too bad for the British driver as he now goes on the long right-hander. Isn't as confident as Lifebout with the steering, but who is through that corner? That was ridiculous. As Reshka now comes to the hairpin, brakes just before the curb on the left-hand side and gets it stopped, but a little bit wide on exit, creates a bit of oversteer as well as he comes down towards the final corner. A bit of curb as well that's going to unsettle the car, but it's not too bad from Reshka. It's a 31.9, it's P4 for now, and it's ahead of the likes of Lewis and Aces, so not a bad lap at all from Reshka to open up his session. Jack Lacko's still in the pit, so I'm assuming he's only going to do one run here, as Lancer in the Mercedes comes to the final couple of corners. Speed Alcoholic is back in the session. He's got 3 minutes 45 seconds before the end of the session, so he's got about 2 minutes to get out on a lap, so hopefully he can do that. As Lancer starts his flying lap now. DRS open down towards turn 1 and 2. On the brakes all the way through the long right-hander. Jack invalidated his first run, that explains it. So he'll have to go again before the end. But, here comes Lancer now through Sector 1. 23.7 through Sector 1. Not too bad at all. By the flash of the standing on the left-hand side, I think that means Speed has just joined back in, so hopefully he can get in his car and get on a lap before the end of this session, but all the pressure is going to be on his shoulders. If he invalidates, that is game over. Here comes Lancer through the double left-hander, a bit of a wobble through the first left-hander, but not too bad from the Mercedes driver as he comes down towards the final sector now. As the long right-hander keeps close to the curb, just like Lifebout on the inside, but got a bit of wheel spin on exit. Lifebout on an outlap now, so he is going to try and better his previous run, even while being a second clear of the rest of the grid. But Lancer will be looking to change that as he brakes for the hairpin, gets it stopped. Very nicely done from Lancer, and gets the power down very early on the exit as well. He's got to nail the final corner now, and has done. Through towards the line goes Lancer. Is it going to be anywhere near Lifebout? It is 2.5 tenths away, but it's only P2 for Lancer for now. Lifeboat imperious on this circuit at the moment. Speed on an outlap, but he's got a lot of pressure here. He's been out thanks to that power outage for a while, so he's going to have to get back in the groove on this outlap and really send it on his final run. Got both predictions wrong, says Findlay. Yeah, sadly, seems like it. But Jack Alacco down towards the hairpin for his outlap, so he's going to have one more run in this session to try and get himself a little further up the grid. But yeah, the championship leader, Clemo, his pace is looking fairly weak in this qualifying session so far, but we'll see if his race pace is any better. Aces versus Kings 2/10 up in Sector 1. So we'll see what he can do in the middle sector. As it stands, that would get him up to P5. So we will see. Should know by now not to question Lifeboat. Well, yeah, exactly. The practice that that man does on this game is yeah, out of this world, really. But Ace is 6/10 up in the middle sector. He is looking very, very quick around this circuit. Through the final, or the long right-hander he goes, not hugging the inside like Lancer and Lifebout, but still pretty quick through here. And as it stands, he could unseat Marcus and go up to P3, which would be quite the session for him. He'd be delighted with that. But through the hairpin he goes, not using all the track on the exit, so not using all the speed that he could have done, but through the final corner, it's not a bad lap at all from the British driver, and it is P3, a 9/10 of a second improvement from Aces versus Kings. He's going to be very, very happy with that. Speed is on a lap right now, as is Lifebout. We'll see if he's improving through Sector 2. Jack Alacco as well, coming to the final corner. Let's see Lifebout 2.5 up in the middle sector. Wow, he is looking for a brilliant lap here to secure pole position if it wasn't secure already. Jack Alacco goes P6 with that run, beats Reshka out. So great effort from him. Lewis as well is 5.5 up, looking to take P4 from Marcus, who's also on a lap just behind and is only 3/10 up. It would be enough to beat Aces as it stands. Speed Alcoholic on a lap, but we've got to watch Lifebout to see if he's going to improve on that already imperious lap time. Through the final corner goes the Dutchman. It's looking good. DRS open to the line. It's a 30.2, a 3.5 improvement. I cannot see anyone beating that. Speed Alcoholic looking to get P2 possibly. It's P3. Loses out to Lancer by a 10.5. What about Aces? He's not on a lap. What about Marcus? Can he get himself up? Lewis goes up to P4 in the meantime, and Marcus takes P3. Joins his teammate on the second row, but couldn't beat Lancer in the end. And it's Lifebout who takes pole by a considerable margin, and Clemo with a big improvement at the end, improves by over a second and goes up to P7, so he'll be happy with that as well. And that is qualifying over for the Chinese Grand Prix in ESRL, and this is a race I'm very much looking forward to. Yeah, you Speed and Lewis, less than 600th of a second between you. Very, very close. Yeah, definitely Speed, 100%. Second row start after all of that. Very, very strong. So just don't screw up your own race like last week. It is Lifebout on pole position by, I mean, just a ridiculous margin. Lancer in P2, and then Marcus and Speed make up the second row. Lewis in P5, with Aces in P6. Great lap from him too. Clemo goes up to P7 right at the end, with Johnny Stokes down in P8, and then Jacko and Reshka make up the fifth row of the grid. And yeah, the two McLarens next to each other on the grid again. Doesn't bode well, given what happened last week, but we shall see. That is your qualifying over. Martin is going to be one of the drivers to watch, starting from P11. We'll see if his race pace is any better. But fair and square, knocked out in Q2 rather. I think Lifebout is destined for bigger and better things. He's only, what, 15, 16? I mean, 2 years ago, he was back of the grid in APP Tier 2, DNFing pretty much every race. And now, I mean, the trajectory he's on, he's going to be esports someday. He's, I think, still got to put in a lot more practice to become esports. Would you believe it? I know he does a lot of practice already, but those guys are just something else. Like, their whole lives are this game. And I think Lifebout does still touch grass at the moment, but we'll see. We'll see if that changes in the next few years. But I definitely feel like he is touching less and less grass over the last 2 years. Lancer asking if he's lagging in the Discord. Doesn't look like it, so I'll let him know. Anyways, we do have a full grid here in ESRL for the Chinese Grand Prix. Let's have a look at the tyres. Pretty even split between hards and mediums. Lifebout, of course, starting on the hards, and then the 3 cars behind him on the mediums. Lewis on the hards as well, and then, I mean, almost alternating tyres through the rest of the grid. I think most are on hards. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 11 on hards and 9 on mediums. So very even split between the two strategies. So this is going to be a very interesting first stint in this Grand Prix. From my experience, not that... No, I'm thinking of a different track. There is quite a difference between the two tyres at this circuit. So we will see how this goes. Lifebout could be under pressure in the first stint, but the second stint he is going to be wild on those medium tyres. So we will see. If a safety car comes out, though, at an inopportune time, that could throw this race into disarray. But for now, I'm going to keep position... no, I'm going to keep tyres on the screen. I'll switch to position changes later to see who's had the best starts. But here we go. Lifebout lines up on pole position after the formation lap. Lancer alongside him on the front row, and then the 2 McLarens. Can they disrupt anything here? Marcus and Speed. Speed, of course, we know how strong he can be. Martin, to add to his woes today, goes a bit too far on the grid and gets himself disqualified from the formation lap. So we'll start a couple of meters back from the line. Hards until rain could also be a strat. That's a good point, Louis, but we've got 5 red lights. And we're underway for the Chinese Grand Prix. It's a great start from Lancer, but it's even better from Lifebout on the hard tyres. Round the outside he's going to go at turn 1. We've got a terrible camera angle, unfortunately, but it's Lancer on the inside and takes the lead of the Chinese Grand Prix as everyone files through turns 1 and 2. Fairly well behaved from the ESRL grid so far, but it's Lewis who beats out Speed to P4 for now in the Williams. It's a great move from him through turns 1 and 2 and 3, but Speed down the inside at the next braking zone. We've got Aces and Clemo fighting over P6 just behind them, but Speed gets himself back up to P4. Great move down the inside from the McLaren driver, and very much needed as well. He's on those medium tyres, so he's definitely needs to stay ahead of the hard tyre runners at this stage in the race. Aces versus Kings right behind Lewis. Those gaps on the screen are definitely wrong, so don't pay too much attention to those, as Greg has made himself up a couple of positions already. Martin trying to get the move done on Jack Alacco in the meantime for P9. He's already up one position, is the defending champ, but a bit of a snap of oversteer on the exit, not going to help his cause. Uses the ERS though to draw alongside the Scottish driver. Is going to choose the outside line. Jack Alacco files in behind. We've got Johnny and Clemo going all the way to the inside there on the approach to the hairpin, and Johnny just breaks a bit early and backs out of that one, as Jack Alacco now fighting with the Ferrari behind him for P10. Reshka there as well, looking for scraps. He goes down the inside of the Red Bull up to P12. Lancer setting the fastest lap as he is leading this Grand Prix. The gaps on the left should fix themselves after lap 2. They usually do. So you won't have to suffer those for too long, thankfully. But Martin up to P9 and looking to make more progress up the grid in the next few laps after his very disappointing qualifying session. The Red Bull and Aston Martin side by side again, and lost Super Spy. Super Spy up to P12 as Clemo and Aces yet again fighting for P6. They've been side by side pretty much for the last lap, but it is Clemo back up ahead and taking that spot from the Haas driver, who's had a very strong qualifying and will be hoping to carry that into race pace for now. But Johnny Stokes behind looking for scraps, as well as Martin, of course, seeing if anything goes wrong between them. Meanwhile, Lifebout sticking with Lancer just about for now, but those hard tyres are going to make it difficult for the Alfa Romeo driver in this first stint, but he's doing as good of a job as he needs to for now. Position changes, of course, Lancer up 1. We've got Greg up 4 after getting disqualified from qualifying, which is a great sentence. Scott up 3 and Lost Super Spy up 3, so great starts for those drivers. Wiggy down 6 though, so terrible start for him as Martin looks to go down the inside of Johnny and then tries to make the move on Aces as well on the final corner, gets the switchback, hits the back of the Haas a little bit, just a bit of a tap, uses some ERS to go draw alongside, and Martin up to P7 already for the man who started in 11th place, and Aces now under some pressure from Johnny Stokes as he nearly bins it, just about manages to save the car after losing the rear through turn 2, but it does cost him another position, and it's not the start that the British driver would have wanted to this Grand Prix. But Martin now going to chase after Clemo. He's doing a brilliant job on those hard tyres, already up 4 positions, and Clemo his next target. The championship leader is going to be fighting against the defending champion for P6 in the next few laps, I would have thought. Wiggy the first to get a time penalty right at the back there, down in P19. I think QB, we kind of just... he's on the track. Like, yeah, I mean, if we get 10 DNFs, then he'll get a point. But I think that's going to be his only chance from this race of getting anything. Martin in within a second of the Mercedes ahead of him. Does that give him DRS? It has. So Martin joins the DRS train that actually Clemo was at the head of, even after Lewis's big mistake at the hairpin there. Clemo made a similar error, so wasn't able to profit, and very deep at the final corner, and I think Martin is going to be going to have a great chance at getting past this Mercedes in this first stint. He's going to be looking to find himself further up the grid as well, but Lewis already with a 3-second deficit to the top 4, who have really established themselves so far in this first stint. And Martin is going to have to work a lot harder if he wants to get anything other than anything better than 5th out of this race. He'll probably need some luck on his side as well, but in the second stint he should be stronger on the medium tyres, so we will see. Lifebout sticking with Lancer for now. The two McLarens struggling to keep up now. 9.5 tenths is the gap. The detection point is just after this corner, so it's that white line they just passed. So Marcus will have the DRS, but for how much longer will he have it? It's now up to a second, and Lifebout's going to have the DRS here down towards the hairpin. The pole man who took pole by nearly half a second from DRL Lancer has the DRS, but doesn't look to overtake him in the hairpin. Just happy to stay behind for now as we've got yellow flags. That is Zuber round at the long right-hander. That's a shame for him. Very, very easy mistake to make, but that drops him down to P19, some 8 seconds off the rest of the pack for now. There's a big lockup for Greg just ahead of Scott there for P15. Scott can't quite capitalise at this point, but he knows the Alpine definitely vulnerable through there. As it goes a little bit deep there, does Palang just behind them at the final corner. But it's Lancer still leading this Grand Prix. Look at the gap to the top 4 now. 4 seconds between Lewis and Speed, as the McLarens still just about keeping up with those top 2 for now. But I think as soon as Marcus loses the DRS, it's going to be a real struggle for them to stay on board with them. And in fact, he's out of ERS already. Speed's got plenty in the tank. So perhaps we could have a position swap between the McLarens at some point. Some team orders, but yeah, Marcus is expending everything to stay with those top 2. Lifebout, meanwhile, 90% ERS, Lancer 60%, so they're looking pretty strong for pace at this point. Marcus, will he have the DRS? I think he just about would have had it, but really, really struggling to stay with them now. Does he have the DRS? Yes, he does. But yeah, no ERS on your wagon for the McLaren, and I think that's going to be game over in terms of staying with the top 2 as Martin makes another move. Up to P6 goes the defending champion as he continues his march up the grid after a poor qualifying. It's Lewis is the next target, 1.1 seconds up the road. And then Lewis 4 seconds behind the top 4, which Martin is really going to be focusing on in this Grand Prix. He does not want to finish behind all of these 4. That could be a significant result in terms of the championship if on a day where he doesn't bin it, doesn't get anything wrong, if he's P5 on merit, then it's just, you've got to grind out those results. Sometimes it's just not your day. Sometimes it's a track you don't like, or for any other reason, and Mars just got to make sure he grinds out this result and doesn't get frustrated. And at the moment, he's done a great job at not getting frustrated at that qualifying result. He's all the way up to P6 already. But has actually lost time to Lewis on this lap. Must have made a big mistake somewhere, because he's 7/10 further back from where he was before. Meanwhile, Lifebout right on the back of this Mercedes still. Short Marcus does have the DRS, but we are going to have McLaren team orders by the looks of it. Marcus pulling to the inside. Here comes Speed, but no, he's not letting him through. I wonder why Marcus pulled out the slipstream. I'm not sure what that was all about, but it looks like Wiggy's gone round further back, so Zuber's going to have someone to race with for a little bit, which is great to see. Wiggy's gone round again by the looks of it, and Zuber gets straight past, so that racing lasted not a long amount of time between those two as Lifebout lifts off, doesn't want to overtake Lancer at this point. Lancer's got 50% ERS, Lifebout nearly 100%. He is not pushing at all. He's very, very happy on these hard tyres, and I think it's going to take something going horribly wrong for this man to not win this race. But we shall see. Through Sector 2 they go now. Lifebout still right behind this Mercedes. But, no mistakes so far. Marcus has managed to save a bit more ERS up again. Still staying with those top 2. I think they're going to just hope to stay with these guys so they can fight Lancer later on, because I think Lifebout probably going to be out of reach later in this race. But Lancer definitely not impervious to those two McLarens. Rain can change a lot of things. That's also true, Finley. The rain will come later. and throw some unexpected changes into the mix. But Lifeboat now with the DRS again. Is he going to make a move on the Mercedes this time as they go towards the hairpin? It looks like it. Does he lift off? No, he's going to send it down the inside of Lancer towards the hairpin. Gets the car stopped, but goes a little bit deep and allows Lancer to do the old switcheroo on the exit. And the Mercedes back up to P1. Is Lifeboat going to back out? Yes, he is, before the final corner. And Lancer retakes the P1, but here comes Lifeboat again with the DRS down towards turn 1. Masterfully driven by Lifebout, and he retakes the lead down towards turn 1 of the race where he started from pole. And Marcus now has an even bigger job to do because he's 1.1 seconds behind. If he's not careful, he will fall out of this DRS range of the Mercedes, and then it's going to be very, very difficult for him to do anything as Martin loses the place to Clemo. He's in danger of losing it to Johnny as well. Really struggling now is the Red Bull driver. Loses the rear a bit on the exit as well, and Martin, who looked like he was just carving through this grid in his quest to get back up to the top 4, is now under pressure from the cars behind him again after not being able to catch back up to Lewis. Johnny Stokes still side by side, but finally backs out. But Martin down to P7 now as Reshka makes a move on Cheb for P13 further back in the meantime. Scott and Palang also fighting over P16 at the moment, with Wiggy and Wiggy pitting for the soft tyres. Meanwhile, I do wonder when that rain is coming, as now Greg loses the car and goes off towards the wall into the grass. And bit of a disaster for him as the two McLarens finally swap places. I think that perhaps a bit of team orders at McLaren there. Speed definitely the faster driver, and a mistake from Lifebout and Lancer ahead is going to allow Speed to get back in the DRS range. So a good move from McLaren there. And Speed back in the DRS train for P1 as Lancer now looks for the move on Lifebout into turn 1, but can't quite do it. Has a little look to the inside, but no move being made. As these top 4 continue to scrap it out, Lewis now 6 seconds down on them, but nearly 2 seconds ahead of Clemo. So he's in his own race at the moment, is Lewis, but looking pretty strong for pace. And I think currently definitely best of the rest on this grid for now, as Martin looks to the inside of Clemo, who makes a mistake into that corner, but doesn't cost him too much. As the Red Bull driver has to regroup himself, get himself back in the game, but I don't think this is his favourite track. I think that's all it is. Not a track he is strong at. And yeah, he's just going to have to grind out the best result he can here with the lack of pace. Johnny Stokes right there as well, and I think we're going to see another overtake, but we could see an overtake for P2 here. A Speed Alcoholic out of nowhere. We got 3 wide for the lead of the race down towards the hairpin. Speed Alcoholic down the inside of both of them, a bit wide on exit. Lifebout can't do anything. He backs out of it down to P3, but it's Speed Alcoholic, the South African, whose power went out just 10 or 15 minutes or so ago. Got back in just about at the end of Q3, managed to qualify P4, and now leading the Chinese Grand Prix on lap 10 of 28, doing a fantastic job. Gets a bit of a tag from Lancer through turn 2, but no harm done, as Marcus really losing time now. I don't think he has the race pace to keep up with these top 3, and it was a good move by McLaren to swap them. As Speed now leads the Grand Prix, with Lifebout still on those hard tyres, so still in a very strong position. But of course, as we know, it should rain later on in this race. So we'll see who deals with that the best as they come through Sector 2 now. Short Marcus just 1.3 behind, just trying his best to stay with them. He grinds out results like no one else on this grid does, Marcus. He doesn't quite have the pace, the raw pace most of the time of those like Lancer and Martin, but he's always there or thereabouts, and whenever anything goes wrong, he is right there to pick up the pieces, and Lancer retakes the lead of the race in the meantime as Speed Alcoholic goes very, very deep. Lifebout gets a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting and has to give up that place to Speed, but I wonder if he'll get that removed in the stewards. But for now, that is going to be very, very costly for the Dutch driver. But he does, like Finley says in the chat, have a lot more ERS than these two. Lancer and Speed running on empty a little bit. Lifebout still on 90%, so not pushing at all. But I think with that penalty, he may have to push a little bit more in the coming laps as Short Marcus smells blood. He's only 1.03 behind. So he's using some ERS to try and make up that difference, but again he's down to 10%, so he's losing power on every straight, and I think is going to stay just outside of that range as they hit the detection point. But it is going to be very close as Martin back up to P6 in the meantime, and has now caught up to Lewis. When did this happen? They were some 2 seconds behind not long ago, and now Martin right behind him looking to take P5. Looked like he was struggling a little bit ago, but I think maybe he's finally gotten the better of those hard tyres and found his form a little bit more. Still 7 seconds adrift at the top 4, of course, but looking a lot stronger for race pace is Martin at this point. Stokes and Clemo sticking with them as well, but it is going to be Lewis who leads this mini train for P5 going into the hairpin, but Martin right behind and a bit deep from Lewis there could allow Martin to launch an attack into turn 1. And talking of launching attacks into turn 1, here's Speed Alcoholic down the inside of Lancer with the DRS into turn 1. They're still going to be side by side through turn 2. Lifebout just watching and waiting, but it's Speed who takes the lead once again of the Grand Prix, and Martin does indeed make the attack on Lewis, and he's up to P5 into turn 1 with that DRS. How much ERS has he got left? About 25% or so. Lewis similar. Johnny Stokes a little bit more on that Ferrari. It's these top 3 streaking away from the rest now. Marcus just about within 1.2, but can't stay within DRS. Just relying on the battles between the 3 of them to really stay very close. On raw pace, I don't think he quite has it, but he is back in DRS range now, thanks to the dirty air and battling for the 3 cars ahead, but locks the rears, and that is going to be his chance at taking DRS down towards the hairpin gone in a flash. Maybe mediums can stick it out till the rain. I think that's going to be what they're hoping for. Might come in around 5 laps, we'll see. We're approaching the halfway point of this race as Lancer retakes the lead and QB gets out of the way, having been lapped, but Speed gets a much better exit, but Lancer gets the power down and Speed has to stay behind, but he's going to have the DRS down towards turn 1 again. I think it's going to be another change for the lead, and that it is, as the South African goes down the inside and makes the move, but Lancer tries to switch back down towards turn 2. A bit of contact between the two. Lifebout just right behind, watching and waiting. Martin getting back past Lewis again. These two battling for P5, 7 seconds further down the road, but it is Speed who retakes the lead for now as Lost Super Spy gets past Jacko in similar fashion for P13 further back. Got yellow flags in sector 1. That's just QB moving out of the way of everyone as Reshka and Cheb fighting over the last points paying position. Lewis and Johnny Stokes fighting as well, which is not going to help their cause in terms of staying with Martin, who still has plenty of ERS left, unlike Lewis, who's using it all to try and stay with the Red Bull. Reshka and Cheb still fighting for P10, still side by side they go. Great battle between these two. And it's Reshka who stays in P10 for now, but Cheb is going to be right behind him. Started in last place, remember, this Williams driver, so he's doing a fantastic job on these hard tyres. Up 9 places since the start, and looking to make it 10 on this Aston Martin, but he's gone a bit deep there, and that's going to really compromise his entry into the next corner. So Johnny Stokes makes it past Lewis, and Clemo's going to do the same. No DRS on that Williams, and loses 2 positions because of it. Goes in very, very hot into the hairpin. Clemo's not going to be too happy with that one, but Lewis does keep P7 as a result. It's Johnny Stokes up to 6th place, and he's trying to stay with Martin, but he's got no ERS left, and Mar has just been saving 7 seconds adrift of Marcus, but he's going to be on the mediums in the second stint, and I would not be surprised to see that gap tumble down. But of course, I keep forgetting that the rain is coming. Marcus is losing time all the time to these top 3. He's now 2 seconds behind them, as Lifebout with a bit of an error through that right-hander, but manages to keep it together. And Speed and Lancer still the top 2 in this race. Those medium tyres working well for them, but they're going to be hoping to stick it out until the rain. I still don't know when it's coming. The skies are looking pretty grey, but I'm not seeing any raindrops still. So we'll see when it arrives. Johnny Stokes right behind that Red Bull. He has fought back on those medium tyres, and Martin, a little bit of pressure now from this Ferrari. For that 5th place, loses a lot of time to Marcus, does Martin, through few corners, 6/10 almost, as Lancer gets back past Speed into P1. In the meantime, through the hairpin, Lifebout still just sitting behind and watching the 2 of them battle, not interested in getting involved, and why would he be? He's on the hard tyres and looking to go a bit longer. Zuba's gone on the inters, which is a very, very bold move. And I think a very early move, considering I have not seen a single raindrop as of yet. Lost Super Spy, meanwhile, getting a time penalty for multiple track limits warnings, as Johnny Stokes gets past Martin for P5, and the defending champ definitely struggling today for pace in comparison to the top 4. Lifebout now getting past Speed, who must have made a mistake. Lifebout with a bit of a mistake of his own on the exit, but he's made the move stick, and he's up to P2. And he'll be hoping to get that 3-second penalty removed in stewards. Does Speed have damage? He looks very, very understeery. There's no visible damage to that McLaren, but definitely a problem for Speed here. Maybe he's hit the back of Lancer, and that's why Lifebout got past, and he's taken some damage. It's definitely something wrong with that McLaren car. He's very, very understeery, and I think Speed is in a bit of trouble here for damage. It would not surprise me. It did look like something was wrong with that car, and Lifebout now, as a result, retakes the lead of this Grand Prix, uses the ERS to get past down the inside of Lancer. Lancer's going to try and fight him back into the hairpin, but backs out before the braking zone and is back down to P2. So Lifebout looking very strong. Martin again back up to P5 on those hards, and there's the rain. I saw a raindrop. The rain is coming down, so those mediums have lasted long enough. So all that talk about mediums to hards and hards to mediums, it doesn't matter, because the rain's coming down, and Martin's pitted straight away. He's taken a gamble, and why not? Johnny Stokes and Lewis follow him in, but Martin senses that he's got to get a result no matter what in this Grand Prix, and he's gone very early onto the intermediate tyres to try and get it. Huge risk from the Red Bull driver. And he's going to exit the pits well down. Is he going to exit in traffic here? Scott coming down towards turn 1, and yeah, Martin behind him. So not ideal for him on the exit on these inters. And I still think it's too early. I think they've come in 1 lap too soon, maybe even 2 laps too soon for those inters. Let's watch Cheb, see if he gets a better exit. Not really at this stage, but that could just be driver difference rather than tyre difference. As Lost Super Spy has now left the session, unfortunately, and retired in the pit lane. And that's a real shame. But yeah, he's going to hopefully be back for more races without the line, because he's done a fantastic job today for his first race with no assists. As Speed and Lancer swap positions again down towards the hairpin. Lifeboat now leads by nearly a second as these two battle. Now it's over a second. When are they going to come in? Lifeboat into the pit. Speed. Oh, a bit of confusion between the two. It looked like Speed wanted to stay out and Lancer wanted to come in, and there's contact between them. Yellow flags as well. Is there going to be a wing change for one or both of them? Marcus in too, and he's going to lose a lot of time to his teammate in the pits here. Yeah, look at this, the double stack for Marcus. He's lost a few seconds thanks to that, and that could really cost him. Where is Martin? That's the question. He's coming around the final corner now in that Red Bull. And where are the race leaders? Lifeboat way, way ahead. I think it was a bit too early, but Marcus is coming out the pit lane now, and there he is. There's the McLaren just ahead. Martin was 7 seconds adrift of him before they pitted, and now it's only 2 seconds, and the two arch rivals together again on the racetrack nearly. So we'll see if Martin can close that gap in the next few laps. Rashka staying out on those hard tyres. I think he's made a mistake here. I think it was the correct time to pit for the Inters. It's definitely getting pretty slippy out there. And Rashka, I think that decision could cost him a chance at points in this race. Through the double left-hander very, very deep, losing a lot of time to the Inters. And I think it's 1 lap too late for Rashka, and we'll see where he comes out, but yeah, he's going to really struggle now to get a point from this one. It's worth the risk, I think, but I think just a risk too far, as Martin right behind Marcus after that double stack for the McLarens, but has already lost 1.5 seconds to the McLaren driver in this lap alone. So maybe just struggling in these wet conditions is the Red Bull driver, the defending champ, not having a good time out there at the moment. Meanwhile, Speed right behind Lancer, Lifeboat with a 3.5 second advantage. Here comes the McLaren, huge overspeed for Speed Alcoholic. DRS disabled now, it's definitely wet out there. Rashka gets a time penalty for speeding in the pit lane as well. It goes from bad to worse for the Briton, but it's Lancer ahead of Speed for P2. Lifebout 3.8 clear, and it looks like that 3-second penalty might not matter after all. Rashka exits the pits now. He's going to be down in P12, just behind Aces. So he's got a lot of work to do, but he hasn't actually lost as much as I thought he would. But still, that 5-second penalty for speeding, I think, is going to be the killer for him in terms of getting points from this race, as Martin loses the place to Johnny Stokes. As the Ferrari goes up to P5, it's now 5 seconds the gap between these two and short Marcus. So Martin, I think it's just a bad day for him. It's just not a track that suits him. A long way down in terms of pace on where we expect him to be. And he has been all day, knocked out in Q2, made a lot of inroads early in the race, and we thought that the old Mar was back and it was just a blip, just a poor qualifying performance. But no, the pace just isn't there for him today, wet or dry. And I think he's going to be scrapping it out for a low points paying position today on merit. No disasters at all. This is just on merit. A poor day for Martin. Scotty 10 seconds down on the top 8, but comfortably in P9, so looking to secure 2 points, but it could be a boring second stint for him, unfortunately, in that Ferrari, as Jack Alaco, certainly not bored, goes down the inside of Aces for P10. This is for the last point in this race. Goes very deep on the exit of the last corner though, and that could invite Aces down towards turn 1. He's using the ERS. Look at the overspeed on the Haas. Now we start to see the setup differences. Who's got more straight line speed? Who's got more of a wet setup on, as Rashka goes down the inside of Aces, looks at the inside of Jacko as well. Perhaps that point is on the cards after all for the British driver, but struggles on the exit, and that 5-second penalty of course he's got to contend with. But down towards the next corner goes Reshka, aces, brakes too late and loses the exit as a result, and Reshka up to P11 as he fights for that last point on the grid. Speed Alcoholic now 2 seconds behind Lancer, really struggling to keep up with him in the wet conditions. Lancer 4.8 down on Lifebout, who is easily leading this race now. Marcus 7 seconds clear of Johnny. His 7-second advantage over the driver behind him is restored, but unfortunately he's 5 seconds behind his teammate as well. As Lewis now gets past Martin, and a bit of argy-bargy between the two of them on the straight, and Clemo looking to take advantage. They both brake late, and Lewis forces Martin out off the road there on the exit. Clemo gets ahead up to P7, and Martin is scrapping it out for P6 here. He's down to P8 as a result. But I think Lewis is going to find himself in the steward's room for that one. Reshka down the inside of Jacko for P10. Jack with a poor exit. Martin back down the inside of Lewis. Oh, sorry, the other way around. Martin trying to go around the outside of the Williams driver, but can't quite do it. And I think there's going to be some animosity between these two for the remaining 9 laps in this Grand Prix, as Martin will not be happy with that squeeze from Lewis in the hairpin. But it is Reshka up to P10. Aces getting past Jacko as well, who seems to be struggling in the wet conditions. We've really sought the cat from the pigeons in the wet conditions. The great equalizer, of course. And I think those with more experience with elite settings are going to fare better in the wet conditions, and that's certainly true here, as Reshka is flying on these intermediate tyres now and looking to try and pull that 5-second gap to keep P10 after all. It would be an astonishingly good drive in the wet conditions if he can secure P10 here. So very much rooting for him to do exactly that, but Aces will be hoping he can stay with him for the last 8.5 laps. Lewis now gapping Martin by over a second for now. We'll see if Martin loses any more time to the drivers ahead of him in the next few laps, but I mean, even if Lewis does get a 5-second penalty for pushing him off at the hairpin, it might not matter. The pace, and he's into the pits. Martin's into the pits and loses the rear and breaks his front wing, does he? It looked like there's damage to the Red Bull. Goes into the pits, loses the rear end. I think he's coming in for the wets, but he's going to have to replace his front wing as well. And it's an absolute disastrous race for Martin, the defending champion. After getting a penalty earlier on last week in Abu Dhabi and losing the race win, is now out of the points. He's gone on to the wet tyres. He thinks the time has come, but none of the other drivers agree, and it was a disastrous pit entry as well. And Martin, it's just bad to worse for the defending champ. Meanwhile, Lifebout still with a 4.5-second lead, but it hasn't gotten any bigger over the last few laps. As I say that, Lancer makes a mistake and it gets a lot bigger, half a second in one corner. But I think big gaps between all of the top 5 here. So no battling for any of those positions, but Johnny Stokes under pressure from Clemo for P5. As it stands. Lewis not too far behind either, but I think he could be in some trouble with the stewards later on. But I think Martin, it's just a bit of tilt, I would say, from the defending champ. He's holding at the moment all 3 of ESRL's titles. He has the Cockpit Cam Championship, he has the Sprint Championship, and the main ESRL Championship as well. He's holding all 3 right now, defending champs in all 3 of those. So there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and I think just a bit of tilt there from the Red Bull driver. Into the pits for the wet tyres. He's right behind Greg, but broke his front wing on entry as well. And, well, we'll see if anyone else agrees that the wets have to come in. But Greg looks like he's lost the position to Martin there. I think that was QB spinning just behind them. Yes, it was. But Martin up to P14 on those wet tyres. Does anyone else think the time has come? Greg doesn't. He stays out for now, but there's not long to go in this race as Jack Alaco loses the rear at the final corner, and that's going to be another position gained for Martin. Reshka now 2.2 clear of aces. So he's still doing a great job out there, but it's still needs another 2.7 to take that P10. No, it's going to be P9 actually now because of Martin pitting. No matter what, even if he doesn't pull that 5 seconds to aces, he will get a point from this one. And I think it's going to be a very well-deserved point for Reshka if he can hold on to it. But are those wet tyres going to come out for anyone else? Cheb and Palang fighting for P11 further down the road. But Martin might not be out of the points just yet. There's obviously a 15-second gap to aces. From Palang, but if it does get really bad out there, the wets could turn into the much better tyre. I think it's still fairly even at the moment, as you can see, as Mar loses the rear completely, just about keeps it out the wall, but loses a ton of time and loses it again, trying to get back on the circuit. And Martin is having a horrible, horrible time out there in China. The worst race for Ma I can remember in a very long time, this one, as Palang loses the rear. Everyone's losing the rear end at every corner at the moment. Can everyone survive to the end? Are we going to get a safety car here? Is someone going to bin it at a bad place? Palang, again losing the rear. He's got to try and find his way back on the circuit, but again he's round. And is he... I wonder if he's going to inadvertently cause a safety car here. Scott's going to get past. QB loses the rear again. Lifebout still 5.5 seconds clear. Lancer looking planted to the floor. But Speed and Marcus and Johnny, all these guys still looking fairly strong at the moment. But the rain seems to be getting worse. And everyone across the grid, up and down, is struggling. And I wouldn't be surprised to see more drama before the end. Palang still trying to get his car in a straight line and still can't do it. Palang, please, just get yourself to the pit lane, man. Just keep it in fourth gear and just get in a straight line. Come on. Here he goes, here he goes. No, he's round again. What is he doing? He's in second gear, that's why. Just go up to fourth, Palang. Or fifth, even. As Scott now comes in for the wets, he thinks the time has come, and we are going to get some interesting decisions here towards the end of this Grand Prix. Scott has gone for the gamble for the wets. There's only 5 laps to go, though, so... it's a big decision to pit as Lewis gets ahead of Clemo, who's also gone round. Clemo round at the hairpin, and Scotty just behind. It's really getting difficult to drive on those intermediate tyres. We've got some big drama towards the end of this race. The rain is getting worse and worse, and how many more mistakes are we going to see? Scotty very deep at the final corner. Someone's into the pits. That was, I think that was Palang behind them. Yeah, it was. It was Palang. And he's round on entry to the pit lane. Can he get it to the pits? He's really struggling. He gets reset to track by the game. And Scott, if you're watching, the game does do that. He didn't do that by himself, I promise. Yeah, it comes into the bits just to retire, and I don't blame him. It is treacherous out there, and these intermediate tyres are just getting worse and worse to drive on. Who's going to take the gamble? There's big gaps between everyone, but if you pit, you lose a ton of positions, and it may not be worth it with so few laps to go. Martin's into the pits again. Is it going to be a retirement for the defending champion? I think it may well be. Into the pits he comes. Yeah, it is. It's an early retirement for the defending champion. What an absolute disaster for him he's had today. 0 points, and he's got a lot to recover from over the course of the rest of this season. Long way to go, of course, but wow, he is going to be fuming. What a disastrous race from his point of view. Johnny Stokes now Goes very deep into the hairpin as we ride on board with him. And like I say, these intermediate tyres getting more and more difficult to drive on. Look at how slowly Speed is going through this corner, loses the rear on exit, and it's just horrible conditions out there. But they've got to stay on the inters. If they pit, it's not going to be worth it. They're not going to gain enough time in the last 4 laps for it to be worth it, so they've just got to stick it out. It's not like it's dry to wet, it's just wet to even wetter, and that makes decisions a lot more difficult towards the end of a race. Johnny Stokes some 10 seconds behind, so I think if Speed pits, he'd lose a couple of positions. Would it be worth it for any of these guys to pit? Lifeboat looks fairly okay. We're going to ride on board with the race leader, see how he's dealing with these conditions, losing the rear. Yeah, even he's struggling. And that shows you how bad the conditions are out there, and he goes very deep on the exit, making a big mistake. Is Lancer going to do the same? No, he doesn't. But yeah, and gains 3/10 as a result. So it's still anyone's race, this is. Lifeboat may have a 5.7 second lead, but he does have that 3-second penalty, and a mistake that cost him a couple of seconds will suddenly throw this race wide open again. There's still 3 laps to go, and Lifeboat again staying out because he has to. Everyone has to. Is anyone going to take a gamble here? It doesn't look like it. Everyone's staying out. It's heavy rain out there. What about Marcus? If anyone's going to take a gamble, I think it's going to be him, but even he stays out. As Johnny Stokes again losing the rear at the hairpin, locking up. Lewis comes around just behind him, and any position is up for grabs here. They've just got to keep it on the circuit. It's so difficult to drive out there. We've got QB getting out the way there as Clemo goes through the final corner, just about gets the car through. I've got to keep an eye on everyone here because anything can happen. Reshka has managed to open up a 5-second gap to Aces. What a drive this is from Reshka, by the way. Back up to P9 he goes. And he is looking to secure a very strong couple of points from this one. I think he's a real contender for driver of the day today, I've got to say. Scott goes round just as I ride on board with him and clear my throat, and into the wall. So even the wets are struggling out there. It is just horrible conditions, as Zuba is going to be waving out of his cockpit as he gets past his old friend in the other Haas. Up to P14 goes Zuba. And Jacko in P13 at the moment. Aces right now holding the final points paying position in P10. Cheb 17.5 seconds down the road, so Aces perfectly safe here as long as he keeps it on the circuit. But that looks like it's getting more and more difficult an objective to accomplish. Life about 6.5 seconds clear of Lancer. I'm going to keep on board with the race leader here. There's not really any battles on track. The only thing to watch at the moment in these last 2 laps is going to be if anyone bins it. Because it is horrible to drive out there right now. Lifeboat looking pretty planted to the floor so far, but locks up big time into that corner. Just about gets it turned in time and loses the rear a bit on the exit as well, but Lancer not faring too much better through that corner by the looks of it. Oh, and on the exit as well, loses the rear. Anyone can lose it at any time, but everyone's keeping it together. Well done, ESRL. Everyone that's still on the track, you are doing an incredible job out there. It's brilliant to watch you all. It's a huge struggle, clearly, as Lancer nearly loses it on the second of the 2 left-handers, but just about keeps it together, and everyone has just got to keep it on the circuit here. There's no battles to be had. This is not about battling for position now. It's just about not losing the rear end and keeping it on the circuit. Reshka might be able to get past Scotty here, but obviously that time penalty is going to cost him big time. As Clemo loses the rear just as we ride on board with him. Everyone losing the rear out of the second of the double left-handers. Scotty as well. Reshka keeps it together though. Just behind him, Aces does the same thing at the first left-hander. What about the second? Just about holds it together. But that second of the double left-handers is really causing problems for the drivers out there. It's just about who's not going to bin it here. Lifebout takes us on to the final tour of the Shanghai International Circuit. Lap 28 of 28. As here's a battle. Scott looking to fight with Zuba for P14. It's not for a point, but it is definitely for honour between these two. Zuba breaks very early for turn one, and Scott wasn't quite expecting it. Goes straight into the back of him. What a dirty driver, Scott. Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. But no, very understandable given these conditions as they go through turn three. I think Scott's going to let him back through perhaps. Yeah, that's definitely what's happening. Lets him back through like the honourable driver he is, and in fact just turns off to let everyone through. He's very ashamed of himself, is Scott, for that one. Lifebout coming through on this final lap. Everyone just fighting to keep the car on the circuit, but they're just about managing it for now. Lifebout, though, coming down towards the final hairpin, will keep riding on board with everyone behind. Jackalacco gets a penalty, but it doesn't matter in the context of his position. Who's coming through the double right-handers? Clemo and Scotty. Let's ride on board. See if anything goes wrong here. Clemo just very, very light on the throttle through there, understandably so. But it's Lifebout who comes to the final corner, has dominated this race since everyone came in for the Inters, and he wins the Chinese Grand Prix from pole position in dominant fashion. Lancer comes around the final corner for a very strong P2. In the Mercedes. Speed Alcoholic is going to come home in P3 just behind him after Lancer slowed down at the end. Short Marcus comes home in P4. He's just going to be delighted to have gotten to the line in the top four. Johnny Stokes in the Ferrari coming through the final corner as well. Lewis is 2 seconds adrift, so it looks like Johnny is going to take P5. And he does. Great drive from him and from Lewis in P6. Clemo just behind them finishes P7. Scotty comes around the final corner in P8. Rashka comes through as well in a very, very respectable P9 after everything that happened to him. And after his pace early on, Aces versus Kings finishes P10 and takes the final point away. And then we're just going to ride on board with Zuba and Scott. I have no idea what's happening. Scott's come into the pits. He's been lapped, so he's already finished, in fact. And it's Zuba who finishes in 14th. Cheb coming across the line for P11 after a torrential rain towards the end, but everyone had to stay on the Inters. Jackalacco comes home in P12, a long way adrift, but yeah, a lot of big gaps out there, which is very understandable given the conditions. Greg is going to come home in P13, and then we're just going to have to wait for QB to find his way over the line. Let's give him some screen time as he comes down towards the hairpin. Brakes very early. He's still got his ERS on. QB, turn it off. You still got your ERS on. Don't leave that on through the hairpin. Okay, he's turned it off. He's got it. Come on, QB. Final corner. First you have to finish, and QB has done exactly that as always. P16 for him, and that is your race. What a treacherous final stint that was for everyone, but well done to all 16 who finished that race. What a difficult race that was. Driver of the day, Johnny Stokes from the game. I'm going to have to think about my personal driver of the day, but it is a dominant win from Lifebout, who, I mean, well, that explains why he's so fast. He can fly. Just levitates the car. Job done. Hover car, doesn't have to worry about the rain. but he does take P1. I don't know if the FIA regulations cover hover technology, but Lifebout's not going to care at the moment, as he celebrates the champagne with Speed, Alcoholic and Lancer, who take the podium with him. And Speed takes the fastest lap, the extra point for that as well in the dry conditions, which I think he's going to be delighted with that after his load shedding power cut in Q2. But it's Lifebout who wins the Chinese Grand Prix from DRL Lancer in P2, and Speed Alcoholic rounds out the podium. Short Marcus completes a great result for McLaren, 3 and 4 for them after the disaster of Abu Dhabi last week. Johnny Stokes in the top 5 with Lewis in P6. Clemo a few seconds adrift in P7 with Scotty, Reshka and Aces making out the rest of the top 10, and then Cheb, Jackalacco, Greg, Zuba, Scott and QB the rest of the finishers. Martin, the defending champ, out of the race, as well as Palang, Wiggy and Lost Super Spy. My driver of the day, I think I have to give it to Speed after his power cut earlier on during Q2. Just got back into Q3 just in time to set a lap, put himself in P4 and made a great double overtake down the inside of a hairpin for P1 as well at one point in the race, and managed to finish it out in a very respectable P3. So he gets my driver of the day today, but an honourable mention to Reshka as well, because I think he had a great race too. But that will be that. Thank you to Jas in the chat for the compliment. I very much appreciate it. Is it Jas? Yas? I'm not sure. But thank you anyway, even if I did butcher your name. But it's been a pleasure. I need to get a drink of water because my voice is dying. But thank you all ever so much for watching. We'll be back next week for more ESRL. Have a great rest of your weekend, and goodbye.